"They're following us," the blind woman told her husband, but he didn't believe her until Samantha gripped Michael's arm so tightly he nearly lost control of the wheel. The couple had been on the road for 40 minutes, heading to his mother's house, a trip they made every month, but this time something felt different. "They've been following us for 20 minutes, she whispered, her voice laced with a certainty that made Michael roll his eyes for the third time that morning. "Samantha, for heaven's sake, you're imagining things again," he replied, pressing the gas slightly as the silver Accord took a curve on the highway cutting through rural California. "It's paranoia, just like when you thought someone was tampering with our mail." "It's not paranoia, Michael." Samantha turned her face toward him, her sunglasses reflecting the light streaming through the window. "I recognize the engine sound. It's the same one I've heard outside our house for the past 3 weeks, always at the same time." Michael sighed heavily. That sigh she had learned to hate in the 2 years since she lost her sight in the accident. It was the same sigh he gave when she tripped over something, when she took too long to find something, when she showed any sign of what he considered her limitations. "Sam, sweetheart, you know my mother already isn't too fond of this whole situation. Let's not show up with you all worked up and talking about being followed, okay?" His words cut deeper than any blade. Samantha felt the familiar lump forming in her throat, the same one that appeared whenever Michael referred to her disability as a situation, or when her mother-in-law made comments about how hard it was for Michael to take care of her. "Michael, I'm not making this up. The car slows when you slow down, speeds up when you speed up. It's keeping the exact same distance from us. How can you be sure if you can't even see?" The question came out crueler than he intended, and Samantha felt as if she'd been punched in the gut. For a moment, silence hung between them like a dark cloud, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning and the distant rumble of the engine she insisted was tailing them. "Because I can't see, I hear better than you," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "My other senses have sharpened, Michael. How many times do I have to explain this?" Fine. You know what? Let's test it then," he said irritably. "I'll turn right up ahead. If someone's really following us, they'll turn too." Michael made a sudden turn onto a residential street leading to an older part of town. Samantha held onto her seat, feeling the change in direction and listening intently to the sounds around them. A few seconds passed, and she heard the suspicious car continue straight down the main road. "See?" Michael said with a tone of victory. "No one's following us. You're just getting too worked up about these visits to my mother." Samantha stayed quiet, but wasn't convinced. She asked Michael to return to the main road, and he obliged, shaking his head in disapproval. A few minutes later, once they were back on the highway, she heard the familiar engine sound again, now farther back, but definitely there. "Michael, they're back. The engine, it's the same sound." "Samantha, enough. You're making me nervous with all this paranoia." But this time, Michael started paying attention too. He checked the rearview mirror and spotted a dark sedan about 5 cars behind them. It didn't seem out of the ordinary, just another car on the road. He decided to test it again, slowing down significantly. To his surprise, the dark sedan slowed down too. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot since we're just starting out. Now continuing, Michael's phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. He glanced quickly at the screen and saw Jason's name, his brother-in-law. He answered on speaker, trying to sound casual. "Hi, Jay. Everything okay?" "Michael, man, where are you guys?" Jason's voice sounded tense, unlike his usual tone. "On our way to my mom's, like always." "Why?" "No, nothing. It's just... Look, maybe it's better if you don't come today." Sam felt Michael tense up beside her. His breathing changed, becoming shallower, and she noticed his grip on the steering wheel tighten. "What do you mean, Jason? Did something happen?" No, it's just... My mum isn't feeling too well today. Maybe it's better to reschedule." "Your mom?" Sam cut in. "Jason, talk to Sam. Are you okay? Your voice sounds off." "Hi, sis. Yeah, I'm fine, just worried about my mom, you know how it is." Sam had known Jason for 5 years. ever since she married Michael. She could always tell when he was lying, and right then, he was definitely hiding something. His voice sounded forced, like someone was making him talk. "Jason, where are you right now?" she asked directly. "Here. At home. Taking care of my mom." "That's strange," Sam said, letting suspicion slip into her tone. "Because your mum called me last night and said she was looking forward to seeing us today. She mentioned she made that chocolate cake Michael loves." An awkward silence hung on the other end of the line. Michael looked at Sam, confused, not following where she was going with this. She got worse overnight," Jason stammered. "Worse how? What's wrong with her?" "Sam, stop it," Michael interrupted. "If my mom isn't feeling well, we should just reschedule." "No, Michael, something's wrong here. Jason, are you sure everything's okay? Do you need help?" "No, I don't. I have to go now. I'll call you later." The call ended abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in the car. Sam turned to Michael, her expression serious behind her sunglasses. "Michael, something's really wrong." Jason's voice was completely different, like he was scared of something. "Or maybe you're reading too much into it, like you've been doing lately." "Like I've been doing?" Sam's voice rose. "Michael, I'm not making things up. Ever since I lost my sight, my hearing has gotten sharper. I can pick up nuances in people's voices that you wouldn't even notice. Sam, you know I love you, but sometimes you get too intense with these hunches of yours." Sam felt anger rising in her chest. Intense. Paranoid. Those were the words Michael always used whenever she showed any intuition or perception he couldn't understand. As if her blindness had also affected her ability to think and feel. "You know what, Michael? Pull over, please." "Pull over what?" "The car. Pull over right now. Sam, we're not making a scene on the side of the road over—" "Pull over," she shouted with such intensity that Michael flinched in surprise. He pulled onto the shoulder, turning on the hazard lights. The dark car that had been following them passed by, but Sam noticed it slowed down considerably as it did. "There. Now explain what's going on," Michael said, turning off the engine. "Michael, you've known me for 6 years. In all that time, have I ever lied to you about anything?" "No, but—" "And have my instincts about people ever been wrong?" Michael paused to think. Samantha had a peculiar gift for reading people, even before the accident. Several times she had warned about people who seemed trustworthy, but later turned out to be trouble. She had distrusted Michael's old business partner months before he discovered the man was embezzling money from the company. "No," he admitted reluctantly. "Then why don't you believe me now? Just because I can't see?" Michael stayed silent for a few seconds, the weight of the question hanging between them. Samantha seized the moment to continue. "Michael, that car that just passed us slowed down. It's going to stop somewhere ahead and wait for us to get back on the road. And there's something else you need to know." "What?" "Jason was lying about being at your mom's house. In the background of the call, I heard the noise of a busy place like a bar or restaurant, and there was music playing, that Luke Bryan song that always plays at Old Man Johnson's gas station radio." Michael's eyes widened. Old Man Johnson's gas station was at the entrance to their town, 40 miles away from his mother's house. "How can you be sure about that?" "Because I pay attention to details, Michael. Because when you can't see, you learn to use all your other senses. And because, unlike you, I don't dismiss information just because it comes from your blind wife." Samantha's words cut deep. Michael felt a pang of guilt in his chest, realizing he had indeed been systematically downplaying her instincts. "Sam, No, let me finish. There's more. For the past 3 weeks, every Tuesday and Thursday between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, a car stops in front of our house. I know because I'm always in the living room at that time, listening to music or doing Braille crossword puzzles. The engine stays running for exactly 15 minutes, then it leaves. Why didn't you ever tell me? I tried. Remember last Tuesday when you got home from work and I said something strange had happened? You told me I was being too sensitive and that maybe I should go back on my anxiety meds. Michael vaguely recalled the conversation. He'd come home tired from work, swamped with problems to solve, and hadn't really paid attention to what Samantha was trying to say. Samantha, forgive me. Maybe I haven't been the best listener lately. Maybe. Michael, you've practically treated me like a child since the accident. As if along with my sight, I'd also lost my intelligence and intuition. Michael's phone rang again, interrupting the conversation. It was his mother. He looked at Samantha as if asking for permission to answer. "Take it," she said, "but put it on speaker." "Hello, Mom?" "Michael, sweetheart, where are you? I've already made lunch and it's getting cold." "Mom, didn't Jason call you?" "Jason? No. Why? Did something happen to him?" Michael and Samantha exchanged a meaningful glance. Jason had lied about taking care of his mother. "Mom, are you alone at home?" "Of course I am, honey. Why the strange question? It's just that Jason called us saying you weren't feeling well and that we shouldn't come today." "Not feeling well? Michael, I'm perfectly fine. In fact, I'm worried about Jason. He's been missing for 3 days. He won't even answer my calls." Samantha squeezed Michael's arm again, but this time it wasn't out of fear. It was to say, "I told you so." "Mum, we're on our way. We'll be there in about 40 minutes. "All right, sweetheart. Drive safe." Michael hung up and stared blankly for a few seconds, processing everything. "Samantha, if Jason isn't at my mum's house, where is he? And why did he lie?" "I don't know, but I have a theory." "Remember last month when you mentioned he was having financial problems?" "I remember. He asked to borrow money, but I said I couldn't help at the time." "Michael, did you lie to me?" "What do you mean?" "You lent him money, didn't you? That's why our savings account dropped last month." Michael turned red. Samantha was right. He had lent $5,000 to Jason, but lied to her, saying the money had been used to fix the office air conditioning. "How did you find out?" "Michael, I may not see, but I'm not stupid. You changed the account password and thought I wouldn't notice, but I called the bank and found out exactly how much was transferred and to which account." "Samantha, I didn't want to worry you." "Worry me?" she shouted, making Michael jump in his seat. "Michael, that money was for the bathroom renovation. It was for installing the grab bars I need, the non-slip flooring. It was to make our home more accessible for me." Michael felt the weight of guilt crashing down on his shoulders like an avalanche. He had chosen to help his brother-in-law instead of tending to his wife's real needs. "Sam, I can explain." "Explain what, Michael?" "That you think it's more important to help my gambling-addicted brother than to ensure my safety at home." "Gambling addict? You didn't know?" "Michael, Jason owes money to some very dangerous people. That's why he's disappeared. Why someone's watching our house. Why that car's been following us." As if summoned by Samantha's words, the dark sedan appeared again, coming from the opposite direction. It passed them slowly, and this time Michael could see 2 people inside, both wearing sunglasses. "Samantha, did you notice? The car passed us again." "I know. They're scouting, trying to figure out our patterns, our routines. They probably think we can lead them to Jason." A chill ran down Michael's spine. For the first time since the conversation started, he truly believed Samantha was right. "What do we do now?" "First, you're going to tell me everything you know about Jason's debts. And then, we're going to have a very serious talk about our relationship, because I can't stand being treated like I'm helpless by my own husband." Michael took a deep breath, knowing one of the hardest conversations of his life was about to begin. But before he could speak, his phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. "Answer it," said Samantha, on speaker. "Hello?" "Michael Thompson," a man's voice, serious and direct. "That's me. Who's speaking?" "My name is Derek. I'm a friend of Jason's. We need to talk." "Talk about what?" "About the $50,000 he owes my boss, and how you're going to help us find him." Michael went pale. $50,000? He'd only lent Jason $5,000. "I don't know what you're talking about. Jason doesn't owe me any money." "Not a debt to you, Michael. A debt to people who don't like waiting. And your brother-in-law used your name as a reference." "What do you mean, used my name?" "Jason told my boss that if he couldn't pay, you'd cover the debt. After all, you're married to his sister and have a thriving business." Samantha gripped Michael's arm tightly. Everything made sense now. Jason had used his brother-in-law's name to borrow more money, likely from loan sharks. Listen, Derek, I have nothing to do with Jason's debts. He had no right to use my name for anything. That's something you'll explain in person to my boss, both of you, tonight. No way, Samantha cut in. We're not meeting anyone. And who are you, sweetheart? I'm the debtor's sister and the guarantor's wife, and I'm telling you we have nothing to do with this story. Derek laughed on the other end of the line, a laugh that sent chills down Michael's spine. Funny. Jason said his sister was blind and that it wouldn't be a problem. Seems he underestimated you. He underestimated both of us, replied Samantha, looking toward Michael. Because we're going to fix this. But our way. What do you mean? We know where Jason is, and we can take you to him. But there are conditions. Michael stared at Samantha as if she'd lost her mind. They didn't know where Jason was. What conditions? First, you stop following us and watching our house. Second, after you find Jason, you leave us alone for good. And third, the debt is his alone, not ours. And why would I agree to that? Because without our help, you could be searching for Jason till next year. And because if you keep threatening us, I'll go to the police and tell them all about loan sharking and coercion. There was a long silence on the other end. Michael was impressed by Samantha's firmness and negotiation skills. Fine, Derek finally said, but you have until tomorrow to bring me Jason. If you don't, the debt becomes yours. Deal, Samantha said before Michael could protest. Derek hung up, leaving the couple in silence in the car parked on the shoulder. Samantha, have you lost your mind? We don't know where Jason is. Of course we do, she replied calmly. What do you mean? Michael, do you really think I'm as naive as you believe? I know exactly where my brother hides when he's in trouble. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now back to it. Michael started the car and resumed driving, but his mind was buzzing with questions. How did Samantha know where Jason was? Why had she never mentioned it? And most importantly, how were they going to get out of this without getting even deeper? Sam, explain something to me. How do you know where Jason is? Remember the last time he showed up at our house, a month ago, when you two were talking on the porch while I made coffee? I remember. You thought I wasn't paying attention, but I heard everything. Jason said he'd rented a little room in the back of Mrs. Thompson's house in Riverside Heights, said it was a quiet spot where no one would look for him. Mrs. Thompson? The woman who was my Braille teacher early on, right after the accident. She's always felt sorry for Jason since we were kids, after our mom died and he was kind of lost. Michael vaguely recalled Jason mentioning an older woman who helped him sometimes, but he hadn't paid much attention. And you're sure he's there? Yes. Actually, I talked to him the day before yesterday. What? Michael nearly lost control of the wheel again. Michael, focus on the road. I called Mrs. Thompson to ask about advanced Braille lessons. During the call, she mentioned she was looking after a lost young man going through a rough patch. She didn't say his name, but I recognized the description. And why didn't you tell me? Because you've been so stressed and impatient with me lately, I didn't want to add to your worries. And honestly, I was hoping Jason would sort out his own mess before dragging you into it. Michael felt another pang of guilt. Samantha had been trying to protect him, even though he'd been treating her poorly for months. Sam, you're right about me being impatient. I guess it hasn't been easy for me either, you know. All this change, learning to handle your disability, trying to protect you. Stop trying to protect me, she exploded. Michael, I don't need protection. I need a partner. I need someone who trusts me, respects me, and treats me like an intelligent, grown woman. But I do that. No, you don't. You treat me like a fragile child who might break at any moment. You make decisions about our lives without consulting me, lie about money, hide problems, and always have an excuse. I didn't want to worry you. I was protecting you. Michael fell silent, absorbing her words. Deep down, he knew she was right. Michael, do you want to know the truth? The accident that left me blind wasn't an accident. What do you mean? I was coming back from downtown that night because Jason had called me in a panic, saying he was in trouble and needed money urgently. You weren't home, you'd gone out to dinner with clients. Michael remembered that night. It was a Thursday and he'd come home late to find Samantha at the hospital, already operated on, her vision lost forever. I took our emergency money, the $3,000 we'd saved, and went to meet him downtown. It was pouring rain, the traffic was terrible. On my way back, that truck skidded right in front of me. Samantha, you never told me this. Because I didn't want you to hate Jason. He already felt guilty enough, and because I knew you'd blame yourself for not being home when I needed you. Michael pulled the car over again, this time because his hands were shaking too much to drive. The entire dynamic of their relationship over the last 2 years was being revealed in a completely different light. Sam, forgive me. I didn't know. And there's more. The money you lent him last month. He used it to pay off part of an old debt, but since the debt was much bigger, he borrowed more money, using your name as collateral. How do you know all this? Because unlike you, I stay in regular contact with him. Every week I call Mrs. Thompson, pretending it's about Braille, but really it's to check if he's okay. Michael was stunned by the network of information Samantha had built without him knowing. She'd been handling this situation far longer than he'd realized. And do you have a plan to fix this? I do. But it'll require you to trust me completely and stop trying to protect me. What's the plan? First, we'll go to your mum's house as planned. We'll have lunch, talk like normal, and you'll call Mrs. Thompson from there to arrange a meeting for tonight. And then we'll pick up Jason and take him to talk to these loan sharks, but we won't just hand him over. We'll negotiate a deal that's fair for everyone. Samantha, these people are dangerous. We can't just walk in and negotiate. Yes, we can, because they want their money back, not more trouble, and because Jason will finally have to face the consequences of his actions. Michael admired the determination in Samantha's voice. For the first time in 2 years, he was seeing the strong, decisive woman he'd married, not the fragile version he'd created in his mind. What if it goes wrong? If it goes wrong, we'll face it together. Like a real couple faces problems. No lies, no hiding things, no trying to protect each other from things we can solve together. Michael started the car again and resumed the drive, but this time he felt different, like he was finally riding alongside his real wife, not the diminished version he'd imagined. Sam, I have a confession. What? I was thinking about filing for divorce. Samantha stayed silent for a few seconds, and Michael immediately regretted speaking. I know, she finally said. How do you know? Michael, do you really think I don't notice when you stay late at the office to avoid being home, when you make excuses to avoid important conversations, when you stop touching me affectionately? Sam. And you know what else? I've been thinking about it too. Michael felt his heart race. You have? I have. Because I can't stand living with someone who treats me like an obligation, like a burden. I'd rather be alone than with someone who doesn't see me as a whole person. But now, after this talk, now I think there might still be hope for us. If you really change how you treat me, if you start respecting and trusting me. Michael reached out and touched Samantha's arm, genuinely affectionate for the first time in months. I want to try, Sam. I want to learn to be a better husband. Then let's start by solving Jason's problem together, as real partners. When they arrived at Michael's mother's house, Mrs. Davis greeted them with a wide smile and a tight hug. The simple but well-kept home smelled of the chocolate cake she had promised. Samantha, dear, how are you? Mrs. Davis asked, guiding her by the hand to the living room. I'm fine, Mrs. Davis. Worried about Jason, but I'm fine. Oh, that boy. Always stirring up trouble. But I'm sure he'll figure things out. During lunch, Michael watched his mother interact with Samantha. To his surprise, Mrs. Davis didn't treat her as helpless. She talked normally, asked for her opinion on things, and even asked for help seasoning the salad, since Samantha always had a good sense of taste. Mom, you like Samantha, don't you? Of course I do, son. Why do you ask? It's just... Sometimes I get the feeling you don't approve of our relationship since the accident. Mrs. Davis stopped chewing and looked at her son with a serious expression. Michael, who told you that? No one said it. Feel it. Son, let me tell you something. I don't disapprove of your marriage because of Samantha's disability. I disapprove of how you've been treating her. Michael was confused. What do you mean? Son, I raised you to be a man who respects and values his partner. But since the accident, you've treated Samantha like she's made of glass. And that's not love, Michael, that's pity. Samantha, who had been listening quietly, felt her eyes fill with tears behind her sunglasses. Mrs. Davis is right, Michael. You pity me. You don't love me. That's not true, I love you. You love the memory of who I was before the accident. You can't accept who I am now. Mrs. Davis got up from the table and went to Samantha, placing a hand on her shoulder. Samantha, dear, you're a strong, smart, and determined woman. With or without sight, any man would be lucky to have you as his wife. Including my son, if he stops being foolish. Mom, Michael protested. No, Michael, it's time someone told you the truth. Told you that your wife isn't a porcelain doll. She's a grown woman who can work, make decisions, have opinions, and yes, even solve complicated problems, like this one with Jason. Samantha smiled for the first time that day. Mrs. Davis, did you know I went back to work? Of course I knew, dear. You're consulting on accessibility for companies, aren't you? Even for that big firm downtown. Michael nearly choked on his water. What? Samantha, you're working? I am. For 3 months now. I earn well too, more than I did before the accident. And why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd try to stop me, saying it was dangerous, that I could get hurt, that I didn't need to work because you supported me. Michael fell silent, realizing Samantha was absolutely right. That would have been exactly his reaction. And how did you get the job? Through the support group for visually impaired people. They referred me to a company being sued for lack of accessibility. I helped them comply with the regulations, and now other companies are reaching out to me. Mrs. Davis clapped her hands. See, Michael, your wife is a successful businesswoman, and you didn't even know. Michael felt even smaller. Samantha was rebuilding her professional life, creating a new career, and he hadn't even noticed. Sam, forgive me, Michael, less talk and more action. Let's call Mrs. Thompson right now. Mrs. Davis handed over the landline, and Samantha dialed the number from memory. Hello, Mrs. Thompson, it's Samantha. I'm fine, thank you. Mrs. Thompson, I need to speak with my brother. It's urgent. Yes, I know he's there. No, he's not in danger, but he needs to resolve something important. Can we come over tonight? Great, thank you. She hung up and turned to Michael. It's set. 8 tonight. And now? Now we'll call that Derek and schedule the meeting for tomorrow morning. But first, you'll promise me one thing. What? That from today on, we're true partners. No secrets, no lies, no trying to protect me from things I can perfectly handle. Michael looked at Samantha, then at his mother, who was smiling approvingly at her daughter-in-law. I promise, Sam, but you have to promise me you'll be patient with me. It'll take time for me to unlearn these habits. I promise. But Michael, if you start treating me like I'm helpless again, I really will ask for a divorce. That won't be necessary, said Michael, taking her hand, because I'll learn to be the husband you deserve. Mrs. Davis wiped a tear from her eye. Now you two finally look like a real couple. Michael's phone rang. It was Derek again. Hello? Hey, Michael. Decided where you're taking me to meet Jason? We have. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, at the gas station at the town entrance. You come alone. Alone? No way. Then there's no deal, Samantha cut in. Either you come alone or you look for Jason on your own too. Who said you get to call the shots? We're not calling the shots, Samantha replied calmly. We're offering a solution. Take it or leave it. There was a long pause. Fine, but if you're lying to me, we're not. See you tomorrow. Michael hung up, impressed by Samantha's firmness. How are you so confident negotiating with these people? Michael, I worked in sales for 5 years before the accident. Negotiating is second nature to me. And these people are just like any difficult client. You show strength, but offer them something they want. And what are we offering? Jason's location, and a solution to their problem. In return, they leave us alone. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now, back to the story. The hours flew by at Mrs. Davis's house. Michael took the chance to have a long talk with his mother about his marriage, while Samantha mentally prepared how she'd approach Jason that night. At 7:30, they said goodbye to Mrs. Davis and headed to Riverside Heights. The neighborhood was modest, with small houses and narrow streets. Mrs. Thompson's house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, surrounded by a neatly kept little garden. "Michael, when we get there, let me talk to Jason first, okay?" "Why?" "Because he's scared and feeling guilty. If you start demanding explanations right away, he might shut down and not cooperate." Michael agreed, recognizing that Samantha understood her brother's psychology better. Mrs. Thompson greeted them at the door with a warm smile. She was a woman of about 70, her grey hair tied in a simple bun, but with lively, intelligent eyes. "Samantha, dear, how wonderful to see you, and this must be Michael." "Mrs. Thompson, thank you for having us. How is Jason?" "Oh dear, he's very nervous. He's barely slept, always looking out the window as if waiting for someone to arrive." She led them through the house to the back, where there was a small annex that served as a bedroom. Jason was sitting on the bed, nervously fiddling with his phone. When he saw Samantha and Michael, his face turned pale. "Sam, how did you find me?" "Jason, I always knew where you were. The question is, why didn't you talk to me about these problems before everything got so complicated?" Jason lowered his head, clearly ashamed. "Because I knew you'd be disappointed in me. After the accident, after everything I caused in your life, I didn't want to add more trouble." "Jason, look at me," said Samantha, even though she couldn't see him. "The accident wasn't your fault. It was just that, an accident. And you're my brother. I'll always want to help you. But this time I've gotten myself into something really bad, Sam. I owe $50,000 to some very dangerous people." "How did you end up owing so much money?" Jason took a deep breath before explaining. "It started with online betting. I was unemployed, depressed, and I saw those ads about how easy it was to make money gambling. At first I even won a little, then I got hooked." Michael held back from interrupting, letting Samantha lead the conversation. "Before I knew it, I owed $15,000 to the betting site. That's when a guy offered to lend me money to pay off the debt and try to win back what I'd lost." "And you took the money?" "I did. $20,000. But instead of paying off the debt, I bet it all trying to win enough to cover both. I lost everything." Samantha shook her head, understanding the vicious cycle her brother had fallen into. "So you borrowed more money?" "Yes, another $15,000. And I used Michael's name as collateral because I knew they wouldn't lend to me alone." Michael finally couldn't hold back. "Jason, how could you dare use my name without permission?" "Michael, I was desperate. I thought I could win the money and pay it all back before you found out." "And you kept betting?" "I did, and lost everything again. Now the debt is $50,000 with interest, and they're threatening to hurt me." Samantha was silent for a few minutes, processing the information. "Jason, are you still gambling?" "No, Sam. It's been a week since I last bet. I realized I have a serious problem and need help." "Good. That's the first step. Now, we'll handle this debt situation, but you'll have to agree to some conditions." "What conditions?" "First, you'll check into a treatment clinic for gambling addiction. Second, you'll get a job and pay off the debt in installments. And third, you'll never use Michael's or my name for anything without our permission again." "Sam, I'll agree to everything, but how are we going to convince these people to accept installments?" "Leave that to me," Samantha said confidently. Michael was impressed by his wife's leadership. She was handling the situation firmly but compassionately. "Jason, we've arranged to meet with them tomorrow morning. You're coming with us, you're going to take responsibility, and you're going to negotiate a deal. What if they don't accept?" "They will," said Samantha, "because we're going to make them an offer that's better for them than trying to force an upfront payment you can't make." Mrs. Thompson, who had been discreetly listening to the conversation, stepped closer. Samantha, dear, would you like me to come with you tomorrow? Sometimes an older person's presence helps calm things down. Mrs. Thompson, thank you for offering, but I think it's better if it's just the three of us. Fewer people, less complication. They spent another hour talking, with Samantha explaining to Jason how the negotiation would go and what to expect. Michael was impressed by her ability to strategize and anticipate scenarios. As they were getting ready to leave, Jason held Samantha's arm. Sam, I want you to know I'm really sorry for everything. For the accident, for the lies, for causing problems between you and Michael. Jason, what matters now is you healing and rebuilding your life. The past can't be changed, but the future is still in our hands. On the drive home, Michael stayed quiet, reflecting on everything that had happened that day. Finally, he broke the silence. Sam, I have a question. What? Do you really think you can convince those loan sharks to accept installments? Michael, those men are businessmen, even if they're the kind we don't like. They lend money to make money. If they hurt Jason or force a violent situation, they'll get nothing. What if they try to threaten us? That's exactly our advantage. We don't owe them anything. We're just the middlemen trying to solve the problem. If they get aggressive with us, we lose our motivation to help. Michael admired Samantha's logic. Had you already thought all this through before? Michael, I've been considering possible solutions since I found out Jason owed money. Unlike you, I don't wait for problems to turn into crises before thinking about them. Another pang of guilt hit Michael. Samantha really was far more prepared and strategic than he'd realized. Sam, can I ask you one more thing? Of course. How are you so strong? After everything that's happened, after all the challenges you've faced, how do you keep that determination? Samantha was silent for a few seconds before answering. Michael, when I lost my sight, I thought my life was over. For the first few months, I just wanted to stay in bed and cry. But then I realized something. What? I realized I could choose to be a victim of my circumstances or the protagonist of my new life. And I chose to be the protagonist. Even with all the difficulties, especially with all the difficulties, Michael, losing my sight taught me we're far stronger than we think. It taught me we can adapt to any situation if we have enough determination. Why didn't you ever tell me about these feelings? Because you never asked. You always assumed I was suffering and needed protection. You never considered I might be okay, that I might be growing and learning from the experience. Michael felt awful. He'd spent 2 years seeing Samantha as a victim, when in reality, she'd been becoming an even stronger version of herself. Sam, I promise from now on, I'll get to know the real you, the person you are today, not just the memory of who you were before. I hope so, Michael. Because the woman you knew before the accident couldn't handle the problem we're facing tomorrow, but the woman I've become since then can. When they got home, it was almost midnight. Michael helped Samantha get inside, but this time respecting her pace and independence, instead of trying to carry her as if she were fragile. Michael, tomorrow is going to be an important day for us. Not just because of Jason, but because of our marriage. What do you mean? Tomorrow you'll see if you can really respect me as a partner, or if you'll go back to your old habits of trying to protect me. I won't let you down, Sam. I hope not, because if you do, it'll be the last chance I give our relationship. Michael swallowed hard, understanding Samantha was serious. Sam, can I ask you one last question today? Of course. Do you still love me? Samantha stopped in the middle of the room and turned toward him. Michael, I never stopped loving you, but I stopped liking the person you became after my accident. Tomorrow we'll find out if there's still hope for the two of you to find each other again. They went to bed in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, Michael reflecting on all the mistakes he'd made, and Samantha planning how she'd handle the negotiation the next day. The next morning, Michael woke up early and found Samantha already dressed and having coffee in the kitchen. Good morning. Sleep well? Not really. I kept thinking about today's conversation. You? Me neither, Sam. I'm nervous. It's normal to be nervous. But remember what we talked about yesterday. We're partners. We'll face this together. At 8:30, They stopped by Mrs. Thompson's house to pick up Jason. He was pale and visibly nervous, but determined to resolve the situation. "Guys, I want you to know I understand how serious what I did was, and I'll accept any consequences. Jason, the only consequence that matters is you getting better and not repeating these mistakes," Samantha said. They arrived at the gas station at 9 sharp. Derek was already there, alone as agreed. He was a man around 40, tall and thin, with a serious but not threatening expression. Samantha stepped out of the car confidently, followed by Michael and Jason. Derek approached them cautiously. "You brought Jason?" "As promised," Samantha replied. "Now we'll talk like civilized people. Jason, are you going to pay the $50,000 or not?" Before Jason could answer, Samantha intervened. "Derek, can I ask you something? What's your goal here?" "My goal? To get the money this guy owes." "Perfect. Then let's talk about how you can get that money in the most guaranteed way possible." Derek was intrigued by Samantha's approach. "How so?" "You can try to force Jason to pay $50,000 up front, money he doesn't have. Or you can accept a plan that guarantees you get all the money, with interest in installments." "What kind of plan?" "Jason will check into treatment for his gambling addiction. After that, he'll get a job and pay $1,000 a month for 60 months. In the end, you'll get $60,000 instead of $50,000. Derek thought for a few seconds. "And what guarantees he'll pay?" "First, because he'll be in treatment and won't gamble anymore. Second, because we'll oversee the process and make sure payments happen. And third, because it's the only realistic way you'll get your money." "What if he misses a payment?" "Then you can take whatever measures you think are necessary. But if you accept our offer, there are 4 people responsible for making sure payments happen. Jason, me, Michael, and Mrs. Thompson." Derek was clearly impressed by Samantha's structured proposal. "Who's Mrs. Thompson?" "A 70-year-old woman with moral authority over all of us who won't let anyone fail their commitments." Derek laughed, realizing there really was a support network around Jason. "And why are you willing to guarantee a debt that isn't yours?" "Because Jason is family, and because we'd rather solve problems civilly than let them turn into tragedies." Michael was impressed by Samantha's negotiation skills. She was treating Derek like a difficult client, not a criminal. "Derek, can I say something?" Jason finally spoke up. "Go ahead." "I know I messed up big time, but I want to make things right. If you accept this plan, I promise I'll stick to it strictly." "And if you don't?" "If I don't, I'll face all the consequences, but I will stick to it." Derek stayed silent for a few minutes, clearly weighing his options. "Look, honestly, I didn't expect such a professional proposal." "Because you thought you'd find desperate, disorganized people," Samantha said. "But we're responsible people who want to solve this fairly. Do you have any collateral to offer?" Michael and Samantha exchanged a quick glance. "We do," Michael said. "I can give you my car as collateral for the first 12 payments." "Michael, you don't have to," Jason protested. "Yes, we do," Samantha said. "Derek needs assurance, and we need to show we're serious." Derek looked visibly surprised by the offer. "You're really willing to do this?" "We are," Samantha replied, "because we trust Jason to hold up his end." "All right, I accept the deal. $1,000 a month for 60 months starting next month. Miss 2 payments in a row, and the full debt is due again." "Deal," Samantha said, extending her hand. Derek shook it, clearly impressed. "You're an interesting family, especially you, Samantha. Don't often meet someone who negotiates like that." "Thank you. Now, about leaving us in peace. Don't worry. From now on, our only contact will be for payments." After Derek left, the 3 sat in silence for a few minutes, processing what had happened. "Sam, you were amazing," Jason said, tears in his eyes. "I just did what needed to be done. Now you'll do your part. Treatment and work." "I promise, Sam, I won't let you down." Michael looked at Samantha with newfound admiration. "Sam, how did you learn to negotiate like that?" "Michael, I've always known how. You just never paid attention." On the way back after dropping Jason off at the treatment clinic where he'd check himself in voluntarily, Michael and Samantha finally had the conversation they'd needed to have for 2 years. "Sam, I need to apologize for a lot of things. Michael, apologizing is easy. What's hard is actually changing. I know. And I want to change. I want to learn to be the husband you deserve. That'll take a lot of work on your part. You'll have to unlearn 2 years of bad habits. I'm willing. Sam, today I saw who you really are, and I fell in love with you all over again. Samantha smiled, the first genuine smile she'd given Michael in months. I want to try too, Michael, but with clear conditions. What conditions? Full transparency about money, respect for my decisions and abilities, and couples therapy for both of us. I accept all of it. And Michael, one more thing. What? I want to expand my consulting business, hire employees, and really grow. Sam, that's fantastic. How can I help? By being my partner, not my protector. Believing in me when I say I can do something. I promise. 6 months later, Michael and Samantha were in a completely different place. Her business had grown so much she had to rent an office. Jason was strictly following his treatment and making payments, working as a salesperson at an electronics store. Michael had learned to see Samantha for who she truly was, a strong, intelligent, and fully capable woman. Their discussions now were between real partners, not protector and protected. One afternoon, while they were on the porch having coffee, Samantha made a remark that struck Michael deeply. You know something, Michael. I think we needed to go through this crisis. Why? Because it was the only way for you to realize that the person who lost their sight in the accident wasn't me. It was you. How so? You became blind to who I really am. I just had to learn to see in a different way. Michael laughed, recognizing the wisdom in her words. You're right, so now what? Now we both see clearly who we are and what we want. And that makes all the difference. The end of the story. So, dear listener, what did you think of this story of overcoming and rediscovery? Do you know any couples who've faced similar challenges? Share your thoughts in the comments about Michael and Samantha's transformation. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.